Welcome to my studio, guys. This is Adam from Together Audio. I have the pleasure to show you around Together Audio's newest release, Cheeze Machine PRO. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the details of the architecture of this virtual instrument, and once we're done, you'll be making great sounding patches in no time. Let's begin. Welcome to Cheeze Machine PRO. Before we dive deeper, let's listen to a few sounds. To enable you to quickly check out the large variety of sounds Cheeze Machine can do, we've gathered some presets in the featured category. Let's check out a modern sounding bass. And now, a rich sounding Unison lead, perfectly suited at making EDM. Cheeze Machine PRO's factory bank features a wide selection of sounds. Leads, motion sequences, plugs, brass, tempo syncs presets. Let's check out this pad. In this dropdown, apart from the factory content, you'll see user presets. To save a user preset, right-click on the name and then input any name you like and save with the save icon. At the end of the user presets list, you'll find the Show User Presets folder if you wish to organize your presets. The secret behind Cheeze Machine's Pro rich sound are two Unison generators with various Unison modes. You'll be able to filter the sound they make with an analog modeled filter, which also provides self-oscillation, a drive circuit, and a mixer where you can mix these together, as well as add a sub-oscillator and a noise source to dirty things up. To modulate your sound and really make it come to life, we've provided two LFOs and two mod envelopes, each of them having a selection of destinations, and the same is true for the LFOs. To further enhance your sound, you can use any of the 5 built-in effects: an ensemble effect, a phaser, vibrato, delay, and reverb. The master section features a signal visualizer and a spectrum analyzer. By clicking, you switch between the views. To better understand how the different sections work, we'll begin with a starter preset, which is also a great starting point for making your own sounds from scratch. In the starter preset, generator 1 and 2 are audible, meaning they're turned up. You can also add a sub-oscillator and noise. Now we can only hear generator 1, and let's mix in the sub-oscillator and the noise source. You can transpose each generator by semitones with the pitch knob, To reset any parameter to its default value, click it while holding the Command key on Mac or Control key on Windows. The timbre of the generator is adjusted with the Wave, Shape, and Bright knobs. This provides a continuous control over the waveform. So we can choose a waveform and then shape it. And even adjust the brightness without using the master filter. This allows for some cool blending effects of two generators even before they're passed into the main filter. The power of Cheeze Machine PRO rich and thick sound lies in the Unison modes. You can choose one of 4 Unison modes for each generator. This will create multiple detuned voices and sub-oscillators in the generator itself that can then be detuned with the detune knob in the mixer. Let's listen to how this works. Now that this is detuned, let's compare the Unison modes. The random phase button softens the phasing sweep at the beginning of each note. Now let's make this really fat and dirty with the sub-oscillator and the noise source, but first let's set up a pad type envelope with long attack and long release, and then mix in the sources. Now this was quite rich and thick, and notice that we haven't even used generator 2 or the analog modeled filter yet. Let's mix in generator 2. The white knob in the mixer will spread the generators in the stereo field, creating a very wide sound. And as we'll learn in a second, the white control can be modulated with the LFO to create some stereo movement. But let's get back to the amp envelope for a second. Notice that this is an AHDSR envelope with an additional hold phase between the attack and decay. So the hold sets the time of the hold, not the level. You have the attack, hold, then decay, sustain, and release. So 2 plateaus of the loudness. This provides an additional dimension to shaping the loudness contour. Now let's make some plug sounds. Short attack, moderate decay and release. For this we'll need the wave at full, shape at almost full, shorter decay and release, and no detune. So it's not only about detuning and making everything thick and fat, you can get a really wide palette of sounds out of Cheeze Machine PRO. Now let's talk about hard sync. We'll get back to the starter preset. Hard sync only affects generator 2. It's slightly different than syncing one generator to the other, as on most synths. This sync happens internally, creating a different and very distinct sound. Take a look at the waveform. You can sweep this with the mod wheel, but only up to the maximum pitch set with the pitch knob. So this doesn't work now. We set the maximum pitch up to which the mod wheel sweeps. And now we have a classic sync sweep lead. If you would like to use the module for something else, and not the sync sweeping but still have this effect, you can sweep this with LFO1. Now let's talk about the filter. This analog modeled filter section provides a drive circuit and self-oscillation at high resonance values, and it sounds great. Now some drive. The bottom two knobs in the filter section are keyboard tracking and velocity tracking. The more you dial up the velocity knob, the more the brightness of the filter will respond to how hard you're playing the keys. Let's open the filter up a bit. So this allows for some dynamic and expressive playing. Keyboard tracking, on the other hand, provides a brighter sound the higher you go up the keyboard. This will prevent from the higher notes to be overly filtered and muffled when you try to play a couple of octaves higher. And with some keyboard tracking, the loudness and brightness are preserved. If the filter is quite open to begin with, you can dial keyboard tracking the other way, so that the high notes are not overly bright. At high resonance settings, the resonant peak will also track the keyboard. This is a great sound design tool I will look at in future tutorials. Now let's take a look at Mod Envelope 1 to modulate the frequency of the filter to create a bass patch. So we need to select Mod Envelope 1, and in Mod Destinations we have the frequency, the resonance and noise level. Let's set it to frequency, adjust the envelope times and dial in modulation amount. We can also have negative modulation amounts. The envelope will close the filter. Now let's modulate the resonance. Or noise level for some percussive quality. The envelope can also be looped, so as you hold the key, the envelope cycle will repeat. Let's change the times. So we got these ocean waves fading in and out. This is great when creating pads. Now let's take a look at Mod Envelope 2. You can modulate pitch and brightness separately for generator 1, 2, or both of them at the same time. Let's set this up for pitch of generator 2. Let's mix it in first. Now adjust the envelope and amount. Modulating both generators' pitches. Now let's try this for only the brightness of generator 2. To modulate it upwards, we need to dial this back. This acts as having two envelope sweepable filters separately for the generators. Now let's get back to the starter preset and talk about the LFOs. Cheeze Machine PRO features two LFOs, each with different modulation destinations. LFO1 can modulate generator brightness, shape, corresponding to these two knobs, as well as pitch. First, let's set up a simple pad, so a longer attack can release on the amp envelope. Then we'll turn this into a filter envelope and adjust some times. First, we'll be modulating the brightness of generator 1. To allow some room for modulation, we'll turn down the brightness, which is currently at full. LFO's rate is adjusted here freely in Hertz, or it can be synced to project tempo, then it's displayed in beats. 1 beat corresponds to a quarter note. As with the mod envelopes, you can modulate upwards or downwards with no modulation at the 12 o'clock position. Now let's choose a sawtooth shape for the LFO and turn on retrig, meaning that the LFO will reset its cycle when you play a note. Now we'll be modulating the shape, but first we'll adjust the wave knob so that the basic wave is a square wave, and by modulating the shape, we'll be achieving PWM modulation. This creates a classic PWM string or pad sound. Finally, we can use LFO1 to modulate generator's pitch. We'll set the rate to around 5 Hz to achieve a classic vibrato. You can adjust the depth of LFO modulation with the mod wheel. For that, you have to assign mod wheel to the depth of a given LFO in the bottom right corner. So if the module is assigned to a given LFO, then there will be no modulation if the module is fully down, and full modulation as set with these knobs for the destinations when the module is fully up. Now let's move on to LFO2. The basic architecture is the same, but the targets are different. Mixer wide, filter frequency, and LFO1. Let's set up a slow modulation with 8 beats, that would be 2 bars. Originally the wide control is at center, and we'll modulate it with the LFO. I need to turn down LFO1 pitch modulation, and now adjust the depth of the width modulation. Now let's modulate the filter's frequency, rate of 1 beat, and sawtooth shape. If I'm modulating upwards, then I need to close the filter to begin with. Now for a classic effect with random shape modulation and high resonance. Let's assign LFO2 to be controlled with the mod wheel. So we select LFO2 here, and we'll be modulating mixer wide. Now for the filter. Cheeze Machine PRO features 5 great sounding effects. Let's check them out, but first we'll set up a quick pad sound, starting from scratch, again from the starter preset. First, the ensemble effect to make your sound even thicker and richer. Next, we have the phaser. Vibrato if you wish to use LFO1 for something else. Ramp controls the time after which vibrato appears. So after you play a note, vibrato slowly fades in. You can control vibrato depth with aftertouch, if your keyboard has one. You can also assign aftertouch to filter's frequency. Next, we have the delay effect. Let's try it on a different sound. As you can hear, this is a stereo delay. And finally, a great sounding reverb effect with a selection of holes, plates and rooms. In the master section, you can adjust the output volume of Cheeze Machine PRO, Dynamics controls the response to velocity of your playing, the portamento knob sets the glide time for the generators, and monophonic mode. Notice that in monophonic mode, when you play legato, the envelopes do not re-trigger, allowing you to have, for example, one filter envelope sweep across a few notes, and this lets you program some classic sequences and patches. We'll get to this in a future tutorial. Thank you for doing this deep dive with me. Now you know all about Cheeze Machine Pro. You can now download the free demo from togetheraudio.com and take this out for a spin yourselves. Remember, you can purchase the instrument for as low as $10 thanks to our pay what you want model, and 10% of whatever you choose to pay goes to a good cause you select at checkout. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and also Instagram and Facebook, because we've got more tutorials, more synth gems and other content coming up for you. See ya!